Hi, in this conversation, I'm joined by Francesca Lando, an installation artist, a visual artist based between London, UK and Venice, Italy. Francesca is a founder of Imuto Collective, which is a collective of artists and ideas creating transformational stories that explore human connections. I know, very exciting. I'm one of her biggest fans. And what I'll be chatting to Francesca is how to live artistically and really the role of art in our lives and in exploring ourselves. It's a very rich conversation that I hope you will enjoy. And just as a little intro, Francesca comes from a background of glittery management career in the advertising sector, which in her own words was very successful on the outside, but not so successful on the inside. And in this conversation, Francesca will share her tips, tools, perspectives on how to unleash the power of your creativity so that you can reconnect with your personal dream and act on it, because this is exactly what she did with her art. And she now also has a program that helps other aspiring artists and creatives to do the same. So let's jump right in. I hope you enjoy.
Yeah.
So me and Francesca go way quite a few years. And I want Francesca to tell you a bit about her work and her art, which I had the pleasure of experiencing. And I could say I'm one of her biggest fans. So Francesca, tell us what about your work.
Thank you so much. I love that you're actually following my work so closely and we get to talk about it and explore it more. So as you said, I'm an installation artist. I create immersive experiences and stories. I normally work with other artists because I mainly work on the concept of the installation and the space, but then I bring in artists from different disciplines, like from the choreography world, I bring in sound artists, scent artists, taste artists, and together we create stories that are fully immersive and fully sensory, because I think that sometimes words are not enough to tell a story. They're not enough for us to really get something, like for something to really click in. I think sometimes it's our body who has the capability to make us take on board things in a different way so that we can really shift the way we feel, we think, and hopefully also act. So I'm really interested in themes where art, science, and spirituality meet. So I also work with scientists, like I've been working with epigenetic scientists and I'm working with a neuroscientist, and together we try to find those hotspots where there is a convergence of disciplines, of ideas, of inspiration, really. And so, yes, maybe I can tell a bit more later about some of the installations I do, but I think that's enough for now. And also the other thing I started to do, and that's also why we're having this conversation today, is that I recently started to teach a course, which is called Rescue Your Inner Artist. And it's a course for all to explore their creativity, really, their art that they have inside of themselves. And that's strictly related to the work I do and how I brought about my installation work, how I shifted from a corporate career to a professional artistic practice. And it's about sharing the tools and the ideas that really helped me to achieve that happy transition.
Beautiful. And yeah, I love that you touched on that. I forgot to mention at the beginning, perhaps, that you had a very successful, at least in your words, you say successful on the outside, not so much on the inside, marketing and advertising career, right, for quite a few years. And I believe you worked in design as well, if I right.
Yeah, it was, let's say, it was not so straightforward for me, the kind of my artistic journey. I wanted to be an artist for as long as I can remember, but I quickly decided I was not good enough. So I set aside a dream and pursue something which was very opposite to what I really wanted to do. So my first degree was in business. And then actually ever since, I kind of slowly walked my way back to art. So let's say I did what I thought was the most creative side of business. I went into marketing, then I went into the most creative side of marketing, which for me was advertising. Then I retrained as a designer. And then I worked in the cultural sector, designing exhibitions. And until finally, I realized and had the courage to act on it, that I really wanted to create my own art. I didn't want to design spaces for other people's art. That was amazing, but it was not really what I was after. So it was a long process, not a painless one. I did a lot of work on myself. I work with many people that helped me. I tried many different things, from the more kind of, let's say, scientific or not so much, to more kind of intuitive tools. So like from neuroscience to an energetic work, to therapy, to dance, I tried many different things, and little by little things started to open up for me and started to become very clear. And once I had reconnected with that, I started to find the tools to act on my dream, let's say, and somehow amazingly it started to take shape and kind of manifest in my life. And yes, so that's actually that's why I wanted to create a course, because it took so long for me to find my way, that I hope that if I share what worked for me and what is still working for me, what I bring with me in doing a job I really, really, truly love, like it brings me alive, I hope that will help other people to not waste so much time following definition successes that are not theirs, basically. As you said, it was very shiny on the outside. I was working for big companies on an international level, earning well. I was like, everybody thought I had got it all. And when I say I want to be an artist, people were like, it doesn't make any sense. But it did make sense for me. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation as well, because I think people need to hear that it takes courage, but also that there is a way. Like what I'm hearing is, I love your story, really, from from that kind of side of career into really rescuing your own inner artist, really, technically, right? If you look at it, and creating and living that dream for yourself. So I want to get your perspective on how do you, because I think sometimes and I'm speaking from personal experience, perhaps, when I got into coaching, I discovered this story that I had when I was, I had a coach, and she was a creativity coach, a fellow coach student, actually, at the time. We swapped sessions, and I discovered I had this story that I'm not creative, right? And then from that point, when I saw it, like, oh, what's that, right? And this almost in the same breath, it was like, oh, I want to write more. So I'm not creative, but I want to write more. So what I'm trying to say here is that sometimes the understanding of what creativity is, or in your case, perhaps what art is, can be so different for people, right? So how do you define art, Francesca? And I guess in the same vein, what is for you the difference between being an artist and being creative, if you have that understanding?
For me, I like to use refer to a very broad definition of art, which means for me, art is anything that comes from inside, anything which is inner driven. So it's any form of creativity which is inspired by your heart. So like it's something that doesn't answer to external driven demands. It's not the answer to a brief. It's not the answer to somebody asked me to do this, so I'm doing this in the most beautiful way possible. It's more like, it's almost like an urge you have inside. It's what your heart wants you to express in your life. So it's, of course, it's in a dialogue with the world. It's not that it is like a monologue and it's all like all about me, but it's like it's something which is inner driven, like it's what your heart wants to express. And so I think it's like when you really engage all yourself, you're not engaging just your head, you're not just engaging your hands, you're engaging also your heart, and you're kind of showing up fully authentically with what you have to say. And I like this definition because that implies that is not the result that makes it like art or not, is not how beautiful or how skillful something is, but it is more like what was the driver of that form of expression. And that's frees you up as an artist. Is like your job is to find what you have to say, really. Once what is the most authentic thing you have to say in a conversation, and then the technique or the medium you use is like what's the best way to convey it. But it kind of shifts a lot of the creative process, the artistic process, really. But also it means that anything which is done in this way is a form of art. You can cook artistically, you can live artistically. Actually, I think that life is our highest form of art. So if you live life from your heart, then you're living the life of an artist, let's say. Doesn't matter if you actually produce a painting or not, as long as you are in touch with your inspiration, with what makes you come alive, and you create from that.
I love that. And I love that, Francesca. That's very much how I understand it as well. I guess I say creativity, but when I say it, I mean what you say. And there's a brilliant quote by Osho, I think. And he said, when I say be creative, I don't mean you need to create the best poem or the best painting, but may your life be a poem, may your life be a painting. Oh, it's just like, yeah, there's creativity and artistic, I don't know if impulse is the right word, that we can bring to our whole life. Basically, our life is the ultimate art piece that we are creating ongoingly.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends how you define. I just like to define art in a different way from creativity because I was in the design world. So I had to find for myself a difference between what I was creating as a designer, which many people thought was already very creative, and what is my art now. And it's like when I was designing, I was answering to other people's needs. I mean, sometimes the definition is blurred, right? Because then you can answer to a design brief in a very artistic way, but it really depends to what you bring to the project, how you create. Was your heart involved? Was your inner dimension brought to life through your work or not?
Absolutely. I'm sensing it's like, where is it coming from?
Exactly.
Right? That's really the distinguishing. Yeah, I love that.
And it's liberating in a way because it means that when you start to work in that direction, in my world, you can start to call yourself an artist. You don't need to have produced the perfect painting or because that's a journey, right? You learn little by little. Hopefully, you learn for your projects. You become better every day. But it's more about where is it coming from? What is your intention with that thing that defines you? as an artist. And I really was struggling with that at the beginning until I got to this realization, because I'm Italian, and there is a lot of heritage in art, and there is a lot of amazing artists in our past and in our present, and a lot of times art becomes a synonym of mastery. So it's like, if you're not a master or your discipline, how can you call yourself an artist when there are so many masters around? And that can be kind of, actually, this really, not kind of, but really overwhelming, and it can block a lot of people which are just on a journey. And maybe not everybody becomes Leonardo or somebody else, but it's like, I think it's very important that we all find our form of art and bring that to the world.
Such a good point. And you've started to already answer my next question, actually, but you might have more to say about that, which was, what do you notice holds most people back from expressing or exploring even their artistic selves?
Well, it's for me, is criticism, but more than outer criticism, which it's inner criticism. So it's like the idea that, well, if you go back to the definition of art, where art is something that comes from your heart of art, like it's the most inner thing you have to share. Is like your truest form of expression. Is like your most authentic one. It becomes very the consequence of that it feels very vulnerable when you put it out there in the world. So not just doing it, but the idea of doing it scare most people off, right? And therefore our own defense mechanism, the inner critic, goes wild and they say, oh, don't do it, nobody's ever gonna like it, what's the point, you're wasting your energy, you're wasting your time, all has already been said, there is really no point in this, and if you do it, nobody's gonna like you. If you do it for real, then you have to abandon your life. It will come up with all sorts of excuses, or
you're not good enough yet, for example.
You're not good enough yet. How you're supposed to become good if you never practice or if you never do it? And so I would say inner criticism. Then there is a lot of outer criticism that there is a lot of stigma that comes with the artistic profession, but it's like it hurts only when it resonates with what you already think about it, basically. Basically, you're afraid that people will speak up, say what you're already thinking. So it's not good enough. Why are you doing it? It's a waste of space, it's a waste of everything. And so you really need to do some inner work, let's say, to kind of get to grip with your inner critic, which is, I guess you know better than me, it's not about getting rid of the inner critic. It's always going to be there because it's doing its job of protecting us from potentially scary situations. But it's like, if you're an artist, you're always trying to do something new. You're always trying to express more of yourself, to say something else. So it's always going to feel scary, which means actually even the most important artists, the ones that have been doing that their whole life, they have a really active inner critic, because every time they do something, they're exposing themselves anew with something else, so they're exposing another layer of themselves. So I just want to pause. Go for it.
Yeah, I want to pause there because I think it's a very important point for everyone to hear. It doesn't mean that artists that are making art, putting themselves out in the world, have no longer have their inner critic. They have it. We all have it, but it's about, right, moving
they learn
beyond
to
that.
cope with it. They actually, you even get to welcome your inner critic when he speaks up, because they say, oh, I'm about to do something interesting here. I'm about to do something true and vulnerable. So probably means I'm on to something important. And then you learn how you simply don't identify yourself with the inner critic. It's a voice, but there are more helpful voices inside of yourself that can guide you when you're creating. And so all of this is something, for example, that gets explored in the course. And then there is also this counterpart that we look at using, which is a counterpart of the inner critic, is your inner mentor. And it's the source of your wisdom, right? You have, if you manage to recognize when it is the inner critic that is talking, you can also decide that you're not going to listen to the inner critic, but to some other voices inside of yourself, which are going to help you doing what you really need to do. And everything gets transformed through that. And,
That's this topic of parts and the inner critic, maybe in particular, is very close to my heart, and which just means that I've worked with it quite a bit and worked with clients as well around that. So which you know, and I often say it's not about fighting or trying to get rid of. It's about embracing these various parts of us, right? And inner critic is one of them. As long as we try to just kind of push it out and annihilate it, we're actually giving it more power. We're giving it even more energy, which is then we're losing that energy to something that's not perhaps constructive, and it doesn't work. I always say it just doesn't work. It's a waste of time. But when you embrace, right, we can hold so much more than these individual parts, right? We're a collection of parts and then more. So yeah, I love that perspective that there is. I often say, you know, when you find yourself identified with one side that maybe it's not helpful, there's always equally strong opposite side that you're not acknowledging in the moment. So it's like, okay, just asking, okay, like you said, the inner mentor, for example, sometimes I call it the inner ally, or however, names are beside the point. It's that energy, right, that everyone can tap into within themselves. Like, what's on the other side? Just that question can open things up.
And that's what you say, like everybody can tap into it. It's like it's all about learning the tools. You get to learn how you can handle your inner critic so it doesn't override everything else. You get to learn to tap into different parts of yourself that are more helpful in certain situations. But as you say, I love that you say you embrace also the inner critic in the sense you start to see where it's coming from, and it kind of points out to where there is still some work to you on yourself, some things that you still need to heal, some things that you still need to look at, because there are unresolved things that make the inner critic kind of panic and then shout at you, don't do this or don't do that. And yes, just coming around, as everybody has these voices. Everybody has a very ferocious inner critic. It's like sometimes it's not so loud because maybe we are not really going out of our comfort zone very much. And so you think, oh, my inner critic is tamed, is there, or I don't have one. It's like, I would argue that once you get to do a certain type of things, then you really need to get to know your inner critic, because it's going to have lots of things to say. And that's maybe the biggest thing to learn how to handle if you want to be an artist.
Yeah, I love the perspective that what you said at the beginning when you started talking about the inner critic, that you almost welcome it. Oh, because it's a sign that you're doing something worthwhile, right? This is vulnerable. And it brings me to another topic that I love, which is it takes courage, right? To go outside your comfort zone. And I love that you have specific tools for artists tested on yourself, right?
Yeah.
And with others, actually, because I know you've done this.
I've done this with others. I mean, I know they're not tools only I use. It's like tools that help many other artists. Some that have been in the field much longer than me, and you know, it's like, as I said, I tried many things, and I kind of hanged on to the most effective and most powerful ones, and then you realize that there is a very basic set of tools that everybody that wants to do something artistic, in the sense something vulnerable, something authentic, they need to get familiar with. Like, there is this set of tools that they're really gonna help you get where you want to be. Strange that they don't get taught at schools. Maybe one day they will, but they're like, as you know, they're kind of basic things of how we're made and how our brains work and how we're designed as humans. So it's just becoming familiar with it all, so that you can use things in a more efficient or effective, actually, way for yourself.
Yeah. I often say, and we talked about this before, if I had a magic wand, I could do one thing for the world. I would introduce some sort of know thyself program for kids in school already, to just understand ourselves, the world. I think in a span of 1 or 2 generations, we would have a completely different world, but maybe coordination of that program might be a bit tougher than a magic wand.
Not impossible.
Yeah, not impossible. Exactly. Good to remember. I love everything you shared so far, Francesca. Really, really exciting. And now I guess I'll ask you slightly, generally about art, maybe, because I think, and I don't want to, I have my own perspectives. I love art. But what do you think, in your view, what's the role of art in the world?
Well, I agree with Olafur Eliasson, one of the biggest installation artists in the world, who said that art will say the word, and he tweaked Dostoevsky quotes, the beauty will say the word. But I think art really has a huge role, especially if you look at it in the way we described it, which is like, it's an authentic form of expression, is sharing what comes from your heart. Because I think that means that when you do art, you get connected to your own self. And as you do that, you inspire others to do the same. And somehow it's the consequence is that when you're connected to yourself, you're automatically more connected to others and to everything is around you. It's like it's almost the gateway to feel connection with everything else. And then once you feel connected with everything else, you start to want to do very good things in this world, not just for yourself, but for everybody else. You stop seeing things as kind of win and lose situation, but it's like, where can we all win? Because if you lose, there is nothing for me there is no win for me either. So I think it can really, so yes, for me, art is the way. It's like, it's if we all lived more from our heart, we will be living in a different world already.
Isn't it interesting that the word heart has art in it?
Yeah, it's like it
just occurred to me just now.
And which makes it very difficult for me that I'm Italian and my H are all over the place. They sound the same anyway. But since I see them as synonyms, it's like it's not such a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing at all.
Yeah. Art, well.
Art, exactly. They go hand in hand. I love that, Francesca. I agree. I think art, it makes us think, it opens up perspectives. It, like you said, it connects. I love what you said. Yeah, when you're connected to yourself, you're more connected with others. So true. And I suppose I mean, the world has been going through kind of challenging times for the last few years and arguably for longer, but a kind of heightened, more acute state of challenges in the last few years. And I'm wondering how do you find your creativity? Maybe is it impacted, or do you have any way? I don't know. Do you find that your artistic, maybe inclinations, or just flow, I guess, for lack of a better word, do you find it being impacted by that? And if so, how do you still continue to tap into it, even when, let's say, life is challenging or the external world is challenging?
Well, I'm a very empathic person, so which means that external events do impact me a lot. And then, but I think it's normal, and it's part of, it's not just external events, it's your own life, your own inner life as well. So I think we all go through cycles, and we go through cycles where we feel more inspired, and others where we need just to take some time off and process things and make sense of them. So again, to be honest, I dedicate one of the session of the course to that, which is like learning how to navigate cycles, because there is no way that you can stay on a high all the time, and everything is always, you're always creating, you're always inspired, and you're always creating, inspiring art. Sometimes you go through a cycle and then you're on a low. So you just need to learn to find, to create your own support system. So it's like, normally you need to do that on a high. So it's like, you need to collect and kind of know what are the people, the places, the activities, the practices, the food, everything, the movements that help you, so that you can kind of support yourself with those things when you're not feeling great. And then it's also about accepting the cycle, so accepting that you cannot always be on a high, so that you will need sometimes to rest, recover, cry about things, and then also be kind of knowledgeable and comfortable with the fact that it's you're not going to stay in a low forever. It takes as long as it takes. If you don't resist it, it takes less. If you start to feel low, you start to nurture yourself, you start to slow down, and you start to do the things that kind of bring you back, and then it's going to be, it's going to be better. But yeah, it's like about how do I keep on creating? It's like I know I cannot always keep creating, basically. I know that it's a cycle, and sometimes you just need to pause. And there's this idea that everything is linear, and once you find your path, and everything is going to be like rosy, and nothing is ever going to stop you. Yeah, no, you're possibly, hopefully not going to get stopped, but you're going to have detours, you're going to have cycles, you're going to want to explore new things. It's never linear, but if you have your compass, your reference points, then you don't get lost in those parts. And then there is another trick I use, which is like I never take decisions when I'm in a low point. So I stick to the action plan and to the ideas I had when I was feeling good and inspired. So if I get stuck, or I just bring myself back to that inspired place before I start to change course of action. So yeah, that's what I do when things get challenging.
Excellent. Yeah, I just wanted to say excellent tip on the decision making in particular. And I love everything you said about cycles and this awareness, I think, about that things aren't forever. You know, there's this in positive psychology, this is one of the key principles, if you will, of not principles maybe, but traits of optimistic people, or conversely of kind of people that are more prone to depression, when people are making it like this is what's it called again, learned helplessness, is when people generalize that this is going to be forever. And it's such a kind of a easy, almost a trick, I think, if one can zoom out a bit from the experience and see it for what it is. This is you're in some sort of transition, you're in some sort of downswing, I like to call it as well, like on a low and in a cycle. For anyone that's listening maybe now that might have experienced before, in the future, it's just so useful to take the bird's eye view and see, like, this too shall pass, right? This kind of sayings are almost cliches sometimes, but they are cliches for a reason, because everything's moving all the time in life, isn't it? And so do the low points. And I think the more acceptance actually we bring to it, not indulgence, not I don't know,
not dwelling into it or kind of hanging into that kind of low mood, but just know that there is a time that you need to take extra care of yourself and you kind of, because the thing is, like, only when you accept something you can do something about it, right? So you said that a low moment is here, it's not going to be here forever, so what do you do to support yourself while it is here? And you end up moving through it much more quickly and without making a drama of it, or without thinking the world has stopped. And but again, it's something you need to know, become familiar with, because otherwise you risk to undo the good things when there is a bad moment, because you think, oh, things have changed now, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm gonna change things. And it's like, first thing, get over this period, get yourself inspired. I think that that's the other thing. I think it's very important to know that you can get yourself out of it, and then you're in a good place to plan again, to change maybe the plan, but not don't make too much of your low point, basically. It's I also think if you plan when you're in a low point, you're probably not going to be planning something massively great. You're going to bring about more of that energy later on for you. If you plan from a good point, then you bring that kind of energy and that kind of inspiration into your planning.
Yeah, exactly. I sense like it's almost like you infuse your future with that. And another good thing that occurred to me when you were talking about this, that you you don't make decisions when you're in a low and you plan when you're in a high. I like to frame it as, I think of my past self that made the plans and I stayed true to her, and also thinking of my future self that would be grateful to me for respecting my intentions of my past self. So this is slowly kind of bringing us to a close, Francesca, and I want to hear a bit more about your exciting course, and maybe if you have any other one or two, I don't know, any other advice or tips or anything else you wanted to share with our listeners about living creatively, artistically, before we cut.
Yeah, well, I think we kind of touched upon the course already quite a bit, but basically to kind of put it all in a few sentences, it's called Rescue Your Inner Artist, and it's a course in only 4 weeks, in 4 modules, to kind of unleash the transformational power of your creativity. It's in the 4 modules, we go through the things we just talked about, which is like, there is a first module dedicated to the heart energy. So to your heart energy, how you kind of reconnect to your inner child, which is kind of a master of heart energy, and kind of they connect to the things that bring you joy. What will be a joyful life look like for you? What is your heart craving to create? And so we kind of work with that to then explore what this means for you today, because you're not a child anymore. And what is your heart craving to create today? And from that, and the first module is all about that. And the second module is about the inner critic, actually, and the fears that come up once you start to play with your heart's dreams. A lot of things are going to be triggered. So it's like we get familiar with those fears, we get familiar with the way the inner critic speaks, so that we get to actually recognize when it's the inner critic voice that speaks, and also we learn how to tap into our inner wisdom or inner mentor, so that we can guide ourselves out of this resistance, let's say. And then there is a fourth module, which is all about action, because it's all nice to dream and have big vision, but you actually need to act for it to become part of your life and manifest in your life. So we get down to putting together action plans where your biggest dream is broken down into the smallest steps possible, with very tangible things you can do today and tomorrow, so that little by little you can move in the direction you want. And then the last part, the fourth session, is about the support system. So what are you going to do when you inevitably you're going to get stuck? How do you get yourself out of that rut? How do you actually get to find the energy and inspiration throughout what is a life journey, basically? Mm-hmm. And then as an added thing throughout the module, we work also on a vision board, so that is something very tangible. So you have a vision board and an action plan to take with you after the course. Mm-hmm. And as I say, these are all, I don't know if I should call myself a teacher, because I see myself doing is sharing things that work for me and I think can help others too. And in the past, I had people that were not artists at all joining the course, but they simply wanted to live a more authentic life, something that felt more expansive, more true to themselves. So yes, there was the photographer that wanted to start taking pictures again, but there was also the freelancer that wanted to do something more meaningful for herself. Mm-hmm. And yes.
I believe you have enrollment opening soon, or like you're gathering interest?
Yes, it's like there is a new cohort gonna open soon. So if people are interested in finding out more or and joining the priority list, to know first when enrollment doors are gonna open again, they can go to my website, which is I think it's gonna be in the comments as well.
I'll share that.
But is immutocollective.com/courses, and then they can join up the waiting list, the priority list. And then if they end up enrolling, because there are amazing people that follow you, they're gonna get a special
offer alert.
Yeah, yep, 20 pounds discount if they enroll. They just need to either send me an email to let me know they're coming through you, or they can use a special code, which will also be in the comments, MOJCACOACH, and to claim that discount. And if I have time, I want to say my last tip,
please.
to people that feel they want to have a more creative life, which is to do it, to really just do it. It's all it takes. It's sometimes it can feel overwhelming because we expect grand things of ourselves, and we want to have this perfect vision done and ready, and something really, oh, this is worth changing my life for. And sometimes it is like that, but a lot of times we don't get this kind of huge wake-up call with super clarity about what we need to do next. So what I mean when we say just do it, it means just start following your curiosity, your joy in the small things, and then it's almost like a crammed tail. Little more things will open up for you if you do. So if you can do it by yourself, great. If you cannot do work with somebody like MOJCACOACH or join the course I'm doing, get the help you need to start bringing things that create joy for you in your life. Don't wait the perfect vision, don't wait the perfect moment. There are loads of ways you can start to do things today, and then if you keep on doing it, the big transformation is inevitable. It will just follow. But yes, I would say don't wait to know what your big purpose is before you start to do something.
I love that, Francesca. Thank you. That's such a great point to kind of wrap on. Really resonates with my own definition of purpose, which is not that one thing that we're supposed to do. That might be a calling, but even those shift throughout our lives. Purpose is more like who we're being, that best, and not the perfect, but the best in every moment, the best version of ourselves in every moment, expressing that authentic self coming through as best as we can.
Yeah, and, or I would say, or even just slightly better than today, slightly more authentic. It can be, it is a journey. So it's like, it's about deciding that you want tomorrow to be more expansive than today. And then you start with little things until you get a momentum, and then you can do, and then the small things add up to big things. But it's
wonderful. And a great tip as well, to follow your curiosity. So a call to everyone to follow your curiosity, because I think everybody has those inklings, just need some time to listen to those and then follow them. Thank you, Francesca. Thank you so much for your generous offer to the listeners as well, and for sharing so generously about your process, your tips, your tools, and your wonderful program.
Thank you so much to you, Moitz. It was such a pleasure, as always, to talk with you. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Yes, and I'm thinking, there might well be another recorded one in the cards at some point in the future. I just love talking to you. Thanks, Francesca. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank you very much.
I'll put all the details in the comments below. See you later. Bye.
Bye.